Hey guys, it's your host Julian. Happy New Year. We're rounding out the last chat on Mutant Mayhem for now with lead animator Neave Lifschits. I want to give a special shout out to our Patreon members, Jacob, Brent, and Patrick. Thank you so much for joining us on Patreon. If you want to become a patron and help support this show, check the show notes below and sign up today. Larry and I are working on some really cool stuff for the show, so stay tuned. Now, let's get to my chat with Neave. Welcome to the show, man.
Hi, thank you so much, Julian. It's awesome to be here. Big fan of the show. Just started watching it and got some really amazing guests. Really honored to be one of them for sure.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, so thank you so much, as I said.
Oh, man, I really appreciate it because you guys worked on one of my favorite movies. There was so many great movies that came out this year, and I feel like I would cheat myself and cheat the audience if I just had to pick one. Plus, I couldn't pick one. There were so many fun movies this year, but this is the movie that I can say made me feel like a kid for the first time. I'm horrible at math, so we're gonna go 27 years, I think, is when I'd be 7. Yes, so 27 years ago I felt like a kid, man. You took me back to feeling like I was at Christmas time in PJs, man, holding those Ninja Turtle toys that I asked for all year, man. Just sitting in the movie theater and getting to not only watch it with my kids, but just get, like I said, transported back in time and felt like, man, it's so special. If you're a Turtle fan now, you get this movie to break into the industry for.
For sure.
So we're going to cut straight to the chase, man. How do you get on this movie?
Yeah, ironically, it was not planned. Kind of as I was mentioning to you, I was wrapping up my my time at Real Effects, working on The Monkey King. And I was looking for work and some things fell through. And I applied on, just like LinkedIn post. They were looking for lead animators. And I had two friends, acquaintances that I knew at the company. And so I just kind of asked them like, hey, like, I just wanted to ask you, like, I applied, like, could you let me know a little bit about it? And obviously, like, if you can help just make sure that my reel gets seen, because often that's part of the tricky part, is just to make sure someone sees it. And yeah, had an interview the week or second week after, and it was really awesome interview. We actually couldn't stop talking. Like the recruiter was like, all right guys, let's wrap it up. And he's still my supervisor today. His name's Eric Chung, just like awesome guy. And yeah, that was it. I was thrown in. I was so excited to work on it that I think I logged into my work computer on the weekend before. Don't tell anyone. And because I didn't know anything about it, right? And I just like took a peek and yeah, and that was it. That's how I got to working on it. I just applied online just like anyone else, and that was it.
Man, LinkedIn worked for you, dude. I tried so hard when I got out of the Navy to use LinkedIn, because everybody was like, this is where you get hired. On podcast ads, you always hear LinkedIn. I'm like, all right, man. I go and try it, and I kept getting those notifications saying 8 people have noticed your profile, 20 people.
Oh yeah.
Well, fuck, man, notice me more. Notice me more. I need a job.
No, it was like, I think I saw the company like Cinesite posted about it, and then one of the people that I worked with in the past, like 5 years ago, almost at a different company, she's a production coordinator. So I saw the post, and then I said to her, hey, like I would love to apply. Just if you're willing, I'd be really thankful if you're willing to like put my application forward, just to say like, hey, just check out this guy. I worked with him. He's all right, and that was it. I don't know. Like, it was just a very normal kind of like applying thing. But yeah, I've been trying to do that more, to like message people and ask them if they're willing to, people I've worked with or people I know, but it's uncomfortable sometimes. I don't like to do it. Like, it's a new thing that I'm trying to do, but yeah, it's just like a application online.
That's what friends are for, man. Friends are there to help you. I know we talked a little bit before, but when do you find out that it's the Turtle movie, or did you already know beforehand when you submitted your resume?
So this one I did know, just because like the post had like the logo and they were like, we're hiring for Turtles, but that's not been my experience in the past. I've usually like applied to a studio and I didn't really know like what they were necessarily working on, or even sometimes studios will work on multiple projects, so you don't necessarily know where they're going to put you on until, whatever. So like at Real Effects, I was interviewing with the supervisor for the Scoob 2 movie, and that's what I thought I was going to be on. And then they were like, oh no, you're on Monkey King. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I just didn't know. But yeah, this one just had like the turtles all about it. So a lot of the questions in the interview and like the conversations were related to some of the stuff on the project and so on. But yeah.
Now, when you would think that whenever you're going to, you know, submit a resume for a job, they would at least tell you what you're going to be doing. That way you could at least familiarize yourself just a touch with the source material.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think it would weed out a lot of people 2 or 4. But even then, I think there's something special about you not knowing what you're going to work on, and then you get to work on a really cool movie with some really cool people, and you're like, oh shit, it's like trying a new movie at Blockbuster back in the day. You're like, I don't really know if I'd like this movie. The cover looks cool. I'm gonna check it out and see what happens. And then you're like, oh my god, I love this. I love rom-coms or dramedies now, man. I didn't even think.
I think a lot of people will like message people that they know, like especially in the Vancouver animation industry, it's quite tightly knit, you know, so you end up working in a place and you just know everyone already. I just hadn't always been comfortable like messaging people and stuff, and I haven't been in the Vancouver industry for that long, so I just didn't do it. But most people, they're kind of like even when I was going from Real Effects to Cinecite, like some people told me about Cinecite and the movie and whatever, like, you know, people talk or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I like to experience things myself anyway, and I don't assume that I will know what it's like just based on the name, and especially because, you know, NDAs, like you don't see artwork in the interview usually, again from my experience, so they'll tell you a little bit about it, and that's about it. So I'm like, okay, cool, I get to animate and hopefully work with a bunch of really cool people. Sign me up, right? Like I don't know what it'll be like until it starts.
Well, one of the reels, you got to work on a really cool person, and you know, one of my favorite, I was hook, line, and sinker because it was Turtles as soon as I saw the trailer, right? When I saw the logo, because the logo is the first thing that leaked way back in the day. So I was like, oh man, this is pretty cool. This is going to be, I wonder what they're going to go. Are they going to go something a little bit more retro? Or are they going to go something that's a little bit more like Rise? Is there going to be an amalgamation of the 2012 Rise and something else? What are they going here for? I love the logo because it sparked my curiosity. I'm like, oh, that looks cool. That looks interesting. I've never seen that before, right?
Yeah.
And then the trailer drops. I don't know, and I've said this so many times, so I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know that if I go and watch the same YouTube video over and over and over, I don't know if that counts as one view for the overall video or if that adds up.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you right now, I watched that thing 30 or 40 fucking times, man. I was like, oh my God, I was pointing things out. You know, I love the style. It was so cool. The colors, like it just popped off. Like I said, you've never seen something like that before. And I knew I was going to love it because of the Turtles. However, as soon as I heard his voice, and the guy I'm talking about is Splinter, Jackie Chan, my favorite action star of all time. I was like,
I got goosebumps when you said that. I know it sounds super cheesy.
No, not at all, dude. Like, Jackie Chan was the first action. Like, I get clowned for not liking Jackie Chan because if you don't like Jackie Chan, there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with Jackie. Perfect human being. I get clowned on for the 2 action stars I always bring up because it's Jackie Chan, my favorite of all time. He's the first action movie I remember seeing, and Steven Seagal. That's the guy I get made fun of for so much. But I had a stepfather that was a cop, and he wanted to be Steven Seagal. He wanted to be that old school Western guy. That's what he was always into. So I remember. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 31.
Okay, so 31? we're roughly around the same age. So you remember VHS? You remember VHS?
Yeah.
So I remember this ugly like this guy was a horribly kept house. It smelled so bad. But I remember like he had these not cabinets, but he had a hallway and it was these closets. And I remember he ripped out like what would usually be a closet shelf in there, and then he put just boards in there for shelving, and it was just nothing but VHSs. It was like 12, 13 feet of VHSs. There was 12 or 13 rows, and it was stacked almost to the ceiling. Like the guy had an amazing VHS collection. That's a lot of old spaghetti westerns, a lot of the old action 80s, 70s, and 90s action stars. And I just remember seeing Jackie Chan movies, and Rumble in the Bronx was the first one I saw. And I'm like, oh my God, this. And then you find out he does his own stunts because they have the end of the credit reel. You see him shatter his ankle jumping on that hoverboard. I'm like, oh my God, this guy is a superhuman. You get to put him as Splinter.
Yeah. I read his biography. If I can add that to the fan of
Did
Jackie
you?
Chan. I don't know why. I really like him, of course, but I'm really into biographies, and I was just like, I finished reading like a biography about a chef, David Chan.
Oh,
And then I
dude,
was
he's
like, oh, I
so
wanted to...
cool.
Yeah, and then I want another biography, and I read it, and it was really interesting. Um, but yeah, definitely grew up on not Rumble in the Bronx. I saw that like way later, but like Rush Hour, and
Rush Hour.
what else was it? Yeah, but Jackie Chan, Jet Li, we were both huge fans in our house growing up. I don't know if it's because I lived in Hong Kong. I don't think it was related. My dad just loves movies, and definitely introduced me to a lot of that. So yeah, to me, it's probably like Jackie Chan and Keanu Reeves, and I got to work on Keanu Reeves on Super Pets, so
Batman.
that was cool. But yeah, that was pretty epic to get to work on a scene with him. It was pretty amazing. Yeah, yeah. Apparently, I used to dress up as Batman as a kid. I only
Yeah,
learned that about myself as an adult. So yeah, big Keanu Reeves fan. I think at a certain age, I wanted to change my name to Keanu. I
that's a
don't know
cool name.
why. Yeah, I really like the name. I think it means the wind that blows the water off of a wave,
Uh-huh.
because I think it has a Hawaiian upbringing as well, and also didn't he grow up in, is it Egypt or Lebanon? Sorry, Lebanon, I think. Yeah, he has
I'm
a
not
and
sure.
he's like Canadian as well. Like, I don't know, very interesting guy. Yeah, so I've always been a fan of Keanu Reeves, and Jackie Chan for sure. Yeah.
Oh, dude, two great guys to be on, man. Like I said, you guys turned him into Splinter, or he was Splinter. Um,
Yeah.
what do you remember? Like, obviously, what was your first day like, and how soon into your tenure we're working on Turtles you knew that you were going to start working on Splinter and a couple other cool scenes?
Very, very late,
Yeah.
actually. So at Cinecite, like I was told, like, oh, as a lead, like you're not really expected to animate. But from my experience from leading and souping before, like I've always animated, and it's something that's really important to me. I think I heard an interview with Simon Otto, the head of animation on How to Train Your Dragon 1, 2, both. I don't know. And he said like that he never wants to become a talking head, like as a super, as a lead, because you really want to know what it is that your team is going through. Like how are the rigs, how are the characters, what bugs are you handling, like all that kind of stuff. So I told my soup, like, I want to animate, like even if it's like really small, like a few shots here and there. Obviously I'll prioritize, like my team will get the shots they want. Like I'm always like, what do you guys want to work on, like if I am in charge of casting, not that I always am. And so in the beginning, I actually animated a scene with April as a test, just like as kind of like my first week or two of training. And I used a shot from production as kind of like the test, and my soup really, really liked it. So he was like, I think it's worth like using. So we did that. But I was only assigned to basically like lead this sequence. That was kind of how I started. It was the sequence where the turtles come to with April in the sewer, and then they go to talk to Splinter by themselves, with the like, guys, I brought pizza, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I split that sequence with another lead, and I did like the second half, and I animated like one of the reaction shots of Splinter, just like a really small one. And then and then we moved on, and I led on other stuff, and so on and so forth. And then the sequence where Splinter is fighting all those guards was already in production when I joined. So I was helping one of my animators on my team on, I think it's like the 2 shots after mine, the crazy nunchuck one, which was really, really fun. I was helping him out with that, looking at a lot of nunchuck reference. And then basically the shot that you saw was kind of changed late in the game, and they basically needed someone to animate it. And as you can tell, especially because you talk to a lot of artists, it's a pretty big endeavor of a shot. And someone jokingly said like, oh, Neave should do it. And at that point I was like, well, I hadn't really animated anything this complicated at Cinecite, so I was kind of afraid. I was like, well, am I going to be good at it? Like, I don't know, like, do they think I can do it? Like, I wasn't too keen on like pushing myself, because I felt like at that point I hadn't really proven myself among that team. And yeah, my supervisor just like kind of asked me like, do you want to do it? And I was like, I would love to do it. Like, it's an amazing shot, right? Like, so cool. And so he's like, okay. So it was pretty late in the game, and there were boards done by, I think it was Kyler Spears. He was the co-director. Amazing boards. And so it was pretty late. Like, I think it was like a couple months into the production. So I did not know. Yeah, I was very, very excited, and honored that they allowed me to do it. And yeah.
You said you were looking at a bunch of, either you said you were looking at a bunch of nunchuck stuff, or whenever you guys are pulling a reference. So you obviously have a scene. So if you can walk us through how a scene is pitched, not when you take it and you go and you animate, or you put the action to the script, if you will. Obviously, they're going to bring you a script. They're going to say, this is what happens. At that point, do you have any kind of like, hey, would it be cool if I try something in between these little segues to get to where you want? Or do they have a pretty tight script and they're like, this is what we want?
Yeah, usually it's pretty tight. Like there's 2 other stages after script that come usually before I even join the production. They're considered more of like a pre-production. So usually, I believe from my experience, after storyboarding, after a script will come storyboards. So storyboard artists are usually the ones who first turn text to images. And depending on, what the director or whoever decides wants, they could be varying from like stick figures to like extremely intricate, detailed, like full facial expression boards. Like it really depends. And then after that, they usually do layout or previs or both. I only come from like TV and feature and short film, so I don't know exactly. Maybe in other parts of animation, like the terms are a bit different. But from my experience, like layout or previs is usually, the basic movements of the characters in frame with the full-on cameras. The cameras hopefully should be pretty close to final. And then that's when the animation comes in. And especially from my experience with like fighting sequences, sometimes it gets so detailed that they'll bring like a martial arts choreographer and he'll do certain section. They do the same for like dancing and stuff like that, just because it's so complicated, right? So you really want to decide what's happening. So, and then at that point, depending on A, how detailed those things are, and B, how free the directors or whoever's making the decision wants you to be with things, you get to decide, you get to like maybe pitch things, as you call it. I think it's inevitable you end up having to pitch things, because sometimes when people are storyboarding, the character design isn't final, right? Or like layout changes something, a shot gets cut, right? So you end up having to kind of pitch things just in order to get the shot done, right? And in the right frame rate range, and like, the length and all that stuff. But with this shot specifically, we didn't have layout anymore. We just had boards. So I was going off of drawings, basically. And so, yeah, so usually at that point, what I'll do is I will look for reference online, unless I have choreography, very strict choreography, of course. And even then, sometimes I'll look for reference. And I've actually been taught this sort of like Frankensteining method by one of my teachers back at Animation Mentor. His name's Drew Adams. He's a DreamWorks animator. And basically you take certain references and use different parts of them together, and you kind of cut them together, even to the point where you could like, I'm using the arm from this reference and I'm using the whole rest of the body from this one. Or sometimes a bit more simply, like I'm using this backflip and then this kick and then this whatever. And on Monkey King, I did that a ton, just because, it's hard to find the reference that does all the moves that you're doing, right? So, yeah, so that's usually kind of my step, and I'll stitch it together and speed things up, slow things down, to get it to fit in the shot length. And I will sometimes even pitch that. So on this movie, on Turtles, that's basically what I did. I basically stitched a bunch of and tons of Jackie Chan references together, and some other stuff from other films, and I just showed it to Jeff and Kyler, and I was like, do you like it? And Jeff was like, yes, I love it, go. And it's hard. It's like 8 different videos stitched together. It's like 11.5 seconds. Some of them are super fast. I think I found this one video that was like the stunt team working on The Raid. Do you know the film The Raid? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I was pretty lucky, because when I finished school Animation Mentor, the last shot I did was a fighting shot, and I had a mentor, Sean Sexton, who also knew martial arts. And so I basically watched all the films that you could watch of fighting, and just created this crazy checklist of like, movies and scenes and all this kind of stuff. So I just kind of revisited that and did that again as much as I could. Yeah, just found like as much Jackie Chan reference as I could. Obviously, I really wanted to pay homage to that as possible. But also, as you know, his films have very long cuts and like really wide shots, so you can get a lot of useful physicality reference from it, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so that's usually like that, and that's kind of where you pitch the stuff. You're like, hey, like I think it'll be easier and flow better if we backflip here instead of front flip or whatever, right? For me, like the boards and the layout and all that stuff, like you're trying to take the essence and make it better, right? Like that's every stage in animation. Like you want to try to make the work better and better, while obviously maintaining the director's vision. So yeah, that's usually kind of my process on a shot like that. But this one was probably the most challenging because I basically felt like I had to choreograph a fight, which I hadn't done to this extent, I guess, before. So yeah,
that's still pretty cool, man. With this one, obviously I'm pretty sure you're pretty stressed. You want to make sure you crush it. You said you said you hadn't, plus it's Jackie Chan, and you said him and Keanu is one of your guys, and then you've got the other weighted pressure of like, dude, you said it yourself, I haven't animated to this level, this long, this intricate yet. So all of those things I got to imagine are weighing pretty heavy on you. Was there, when you're looking through, do you remember how long you had on this before I ask you this next question, this scene? Did they give you a timetable?
It was tough. I admit I did a decent amount of overtime on this. And actually the company was super great and supportive. And they actually told me that I'm not allowed to work on it on the weekend anymore. Because I got to the point where I was about to work like illegally, right? Because you have to work a certain amount of hours and then have a break and stuff like that. But yeah, so I was pretty, I put a lot of stress on myself, and it was definitely just me. Yeah, how long was it? I feel like it was like a month, 4 weeks more or less. But I'm not sure, like I could be a little bit wrong, but that's kind of how I remember, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. And that's, again, including like polish, like internal polish. You get it approved by the director, and then you still have a lot of work to do like internally. But yeah, something like that, I think.
All right. With that being said, was there, when you're going and you said you built this massive catalog of just there's scenes, movies, clips, and all this other stuff, choreography for martial arts. Was there one particular thing that you saw in a Jackie Chan movie or anything that you was like, I have to have this particular stance, flip, kick, whatever it was, interchange with one of the guards? Was there something that you saw in a movie that you wanted to get in there that inspired you so much?
Trying to think. I think I just I don't know if I just didn't do as much searching last time I did like a fighting shot, but I found some like older Jackie Chan films, or even films like where he wasn't necessarily the main character or something, that were really, really inspiring. But actually, I think the thing that was the most interesting was from, I think it was Rumble in the Bronx, if I remember correctly. I have it written down somewhere. You know how, if you remember from the Splinter shot, when he ends, he's kind of heaving. There's that joke of he's breathing heavily because he's super tired. And I saw that in the Rumble in the Bronx as well, in the scene. And the breathing was the same, right? Because obviously the breathing was done by Jackie Chan. So I was like, I have to use this reference for this breathing, even though it wasn't the fight or whatever, right? So that was definitely part of it. But no, I mean, the biggest thing with the shot that Jeff and Kyler said was they want it to feel like things are happening all the time and overlapping. They don't want it to feel like, he hits someone and then he's just kind of waiting, right? And so Rumble in the Bronx was a really, really big one. The scene where he's fighting them in the playground was a big one that I looked at a lot. Him versus the monks in Armor of God. Just anything that had multiple characters. Also because Kyler and Jeff wanted a part in the shot where one of the guards hits the other one. And I was like, wow, how on earth am I going to choreograph that? So I didn't actually find something like that happened that was good for me to use as reference. I kind of had to make it up. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of it was also just the, Jackie Chan, he's not, from my experience viewing his stuff, he's not I'll hit you once and neutralize you, right? He does a lot of hits, he does a lot of dodges. Whereas Splinter, because of his proportions, it's hard for him to even just punch a guard, right? Yeah. So I felt like I had to tune it to fit Splinter's proportions, where Splinter's much more of a fighter, at least in this Turtles, where he's like a one punch done, right? Like he neutralizes you within one hit pretty much. So, you know, it was definitely challenging. How do you get Splinter to dodge and hit when he's like half the size of the guards and whatever? So yeah, I don't know. I think I was just trying to stay more true to like Splinter's designs and the limitations rather than a specific reference. But for sure, like anything where Jackie Chan's fighting a bunch of people, yeah, was probably the useful. Oh, Police Story. That's the shopping mall fight sequence. That was the one, I think.
That's a great one too.
Yeah,
Drunken Master's another fantastic one. What I loved about it, because if you ever watch, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Jackie Chan Appreciation Post podcast. If you ever go and you watch Jackie Chan movies, it's fun right out of the gate, but it's like the enthusiasm, the energy, but he also uses the world that's around him. I love seeing, you know, in Rush Hour, where he's jumping up or jumping side to side up a wall and going over it, or he's going through the little bank teller thing in Rush Hour and he gets caught. You know, it's just all these little things that he does, and he interacts with the world. It's just like, it's wild. Like, you're supposed to be fighting just this one dude with kicks and punches, but you're hitting him with chairs and you're beating him with things that he didn't know you were going to hit him with, you know? So it's just, I love interaction with the world. And that's what it felt like when Splinter was fighting. He was using the world around him as his weapon, in a sense. The only criticism I have, and this is not even a criticism, I just thought it would have been a really cool touch, knowing that it was Jackie Chan voicing, Jackie Chan inspired a lot of this action, was just a little bit of the kung fu dust that would come off every time they hit. You know what I'm talking about? Just a little bit of white powder, man.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, animators don't have the call on it, unfortunately. But I don't know who would make that call.
Seth, in part 2, let's get us a little kung fu dust.
Okay, I'll pitch it to them. Yeah, if I get to work on it.
Man, I hope you do. I want to see the entire team come back, because like I said, I know you said that well, hold on, let me ask you this question. Before, you know, you start working on Turtles, what was your I don't want to say frequency, but what were you at with the Turtles? Were you in and out, never really read it, never really watched it? What was your relationship with the Turtles before the movie?
I definitely watched some films and TV shows like growing up, but not to the point that I like remember it. My dad was like telling me, oh, like you used to really like the Turtles growing up and blah blah, and I just don't know. My memory of my childhood is not great. I learn about my childhood through my parents, and then I'm like, is it the truth? I don't know. But when I moved to Canada, when I applied for the job at Bardell, that's where I first worked. One of the projects they were talking about was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles TV show, like the 3D one. And I was so excited about it, right? I was just like, oh my God, I would love to work on it. But unfortunately, like when I joined, they had just like wrapped like the final season. So I was really, really bummed about it. So that was kind of my relationship for it, of like, okay, I guess I'll never get the chance to work on it. Because then they went and did like more live action stuff. So I was like, okay, I don't see them doing like an animated one currently anyway. But yeah, I just like kind of like you, like saw the logo. I mean, when the trailer came out, I was already on the production, but the logo was definitely like intriguing, but I didn't know anything about it. So yeah, my relationship was like kind of like, I love the characters, they're so cool, but I think I was just more into like shows with like martial arts, kind of like the same with like Jackie Chan. I was just like, I want to see animated characters doing martial arts. Like I just find that really exciting. But I was surprised like how much character and personality they injected into these characters. And I think a big part of it, at least from my point of view, was like the voice actors. Like I think the voice actors and the writing, of course, but from what I've heard, like there was a lot of like improvising and like energy with the 4 kids. Apparently they were recording a lot together, like physically together. So, you know, like I remember like when the show ended, I just kind of like missed them. Like it was such a weird feeling, you know? But to me, those Turtles are different. Like I didn't think that the Turtles I was going to work on back in like 2016 were those Turtles, you know what I mean? The fact that they were like really teenagers kind of, you know, felt different. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I became a fan when I started. Like I was like on my first day, I remember telling my partner, like going through stuff, looking at the artwork, looking at some of the stuff that was animated. I was like, I think aesthetically speaking, this is my favorite look I've ever worked on. That's just
Yeah.
how I felt. Like I was just like so blown away. I didn't know the full story yet. Like even when you work on stuff, sometimes you go to the theater and you're like, oh, it's different because they edit it differently, or I didn't get to see all the sequences or whatever. So I was like in the theater, I was like, wow, that was really good. I really enjoyed it. You know, like I'm still viewing it as a person, you know, who didn't work on it as well in a way. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan now, and I would love to work on the second one, but we'll see.
Like I said, I hope all of you guys come back because you're not the first person that said either, you know, I watched it when I was younger, I kind of grew out of it, or, you know, I had this parallel
Mhm.
viewership with it, you know. And I told you before we hit record, it felt like every single person that worked on this, from the writers to the animators, the board artists
Mm.
to, you know, probably even the dudes and the females that were taking the guys and gals that were taking out the fucking trash there at the studios at Micros, man. It seemed like everybody was a turtle fan because, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
sometimes it's looked at negatively, but whenever you
Mm.
hear the term fan service, it's 50-50. It's either you love it or you hate
Oh,
it. Some people are right down the middle, you know, or nobody's really right
interesting.
down the middle. You know, it's polar opposites each time. But I don't think there's anything wrong with fan service. I absolutely love it. Like, what's wrong with a franchise
Mm.
giving you something to enjoy? You know what I mean? Like, oh,
Yeah,
dude,
yeah,
that was such a cool little moment right there. That was like a mwah,
yeah,
chef's kiss. You know, I like that type of shit.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think regardless, from my point of view, with like the people I've worked with, and this is any department, even when you join a project and you're like, let's say you're like, oh, I've never seen the Turtles, I'm not a fan, right? You still know what it's like to really like
Hmm.
something. And when you know that something is important to someone, you want to, you know, respect it,
Yes.
right? So I think a lot of people, you know, especially in animation industry, it's such an international industry. We have people from all over the world working on it who just might have not grown up on it because they grew up on a different show, right?
Yeah.
But they know, oh, like this is really important to people in the world. Like this is important to kids and adults and teenagers. Like I want to do a good job, right? So I think there's always that sense, you know, like, and with each project, I think it's really nice to find that, you know, like something I learned a long time ago is like there's always something to really enjoy about a project, right? Like even if you don't
Yes.
necessarily, maybe you don't connect with the characters, maybe you like didn't grow up on it, like you said, like there's always something like with Monkey King, like I felt like a big thing was we were trying to pay respect to the Chinese like tale, right?
Hmm.
And so yeah, with Turtles, I was just like, I want to do a good job in general, but
Yeah.
obviously like this is so important to so many people. And I think a lot of the people who similar to me were like, oh, I've always kind of liked it, but I don't know anymore. I think they fell in love with these characters. Like I genuinely like, I remember even seeing like the tests that people did before they started on production shots. And I can see people already invoking personality into these characters that they've literally
Hmm.
just met. Like it was weird, you know, like in a really cool way. So yeah, it was really, really exciting to see. And I think the writing and the voice acting really, really helped with that, obviously.
Well, I think there's something to say because I'm pretty sure whenever you guys start doing any kind of pencil test, you know you're working on the turtles at this point, so you can probably do, even if you only have just the surface level of knowledge for the turtles. I mean, we have Google these
Mm-hmm.
days. You could literally find out
Oh
anything
yeah,
about anything in 30 seconds, right? You know,
yeah, for
so
sure.
everybody can kind of, just looking at these guys, they're obviously different. All right, they're in the human world. So they're already that man out of space, or what is it, man? Not man out of time in a sense, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
they're that oddball, you know. So everybody
Yeah,
can
yeah.
really relate to being. And then you hear they're teenagers, like, oh, I remember what I was like as a teenager. I was probably a fucking mutant too, man. I know I was. I was a weird guy. You know, everybody
Yeah.
can at least one time in their life say, "Oh, that was a very weird exchange," and you can kind of influence the art, or the art
Mm-hmm.
influences you in a way where you can interpret, what it's like to be awkward, a teenager, just wanting
Oh,
to
for
fit in,
sure.
just wanting to be one of the other guys or gals, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I remember also when I joined, like I was obviously as a lead, like trying to do drawings to guide people to like stay on model and like respect kind of the turtles kind of style. I mean, obviously
Mhm.
this was a different style, but still. So I just downloaded like hundreds of images of turtles, and a lot of them were like from all these comics, or even like people did like galleries like
Yeah.
in like like in like for a turtle, like a gallery for like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles artwork. Just so much beautiful stuff. I was just like, I'm just enjoying being a part of this world, just like from the art of it, you know? So it's hard not to get excited about it, right? Like you're just like fully immersed into it. And yeah, and I think Jeff and Kyler, at least from my experience with them, were always like super wanting people to pitch their, their weird gestures and their
Yeah.
weird quirks for the shots. And it just like gave so much character to these turtles. Like yeah, it was really, really fun to see.
Oh, I can imagine. With you working on this movie, and you said something that I thought was pretty cool because you said you saw the movie in the theaters and then you would see it in different stages throughout production. So you're like, oh shit, I'm
Yeah.
seeing this as if I didn't work on this movie, which
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
find is so interesting because if my name was in the credit, I'd tell everybody I worked on a Ninja Turtle. Random guy, I worked on Ninja
Yeah.
Turtles. I did that. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
the fact that you guys can go out and you see something, because what I do for a living, I can instantly know whether they love it or hate it for the most part. I
Mm,
feed somebody
yeah.
something, I'm like, ooh, I fucked that one up on that one. But you guys have, it might be a
Mm.
blessing, it might be a curse. You work on these movies 2 3 years, and you don't
Yeah.
really know what people are going to think. You hope they love it, but
Yeah.
you've got this in the back of your mind that this is coming out at a specific date. I really really hope we do something good where people can connect with this one. When you
Yeah.
went out and seen this out in the wild with a regular crowd of people, none of your friends that
Yeah.
worked on the movie, what was that
Yeah.
feeling like? Did it feel real? Did it feel surreal? What was going through your head?
I think definitely I was excited to see a lot of it. So just to like clarify, I worked on it through Cinesight and Mikros
Mhm.
was working on other parts of the movie. So that's also one of the reasons why I didn't see a lot of it. But even when you're working on a film, especially if you're working on a large film like this, like any of the films, like it's hard to keep up with everything, right? And
Yeah.
then like I said, like the editing changed, but I went with my partner and two of my friends and we all wore green. I was really excited. I felt really like proud to be like a part of it, and a big one was also with the people that I worked with. Like some of them I'm really lucky, like I'm still working with them, and a big one was like my supervisor, like the guy who hired me. Like I just like had such a good amazing experience with him at work. So I just think I was like really excited to be a part of it also from that point of view, and I felt like I got to influence a lot of things in terms of process that I never had before. So and yeah, and it was kind of my first like big film lead credit, so I was
Mhm.
like excited from that point of view as well, where as a lead you get to you know help a lot more people bring the creative vision together, right? Like you're a little less just focused on your shots, you're a bit more looking at like whole sequences and stuff, which
Mhm.
is really really fun. So yeah, I was excited, I was nervous. My partner is like a big film critic, so I'm always like, will she like it or whatever. And my friends as well. I was like, yeah, I was like nervous a little bit, but genuinely, I was like, well, I know what I worked on and I liked it, right? So I was like, I'm gonna enjoy that anyway. Um, and I think I was most excited to see the artwork itself. You know what I mean? Like as an animator, like when I'm working on stuff, I don't have all the final textures and the effects and all that stuff. And it's beautiful, don't get me wrong. Everyone looks great still sometimes, but seeing it all together with the sound and all that stuff, it's just like
Mhm.
so much more impactful. And with Turtles, like I used to want to do like backgrounds and visual development before I did animation. So with Turtles, I was just like constantly looking at the
Yes.
lamppost and at the mailbox and at the wall texture and at this like piece of paper on the ground. Like the amount of work that the viz dev artists, the production artists, like the back, like everyone did. Like I went and followed everyone on Instagram. Yashar, have you spoken to Yashar yet?
I have not, no.
uh, yeah, incredible. I think he was the production designer. The lighting was so different than anything I'd ever seen before, like so crazy. So yeah, I was just like excited to see the final product with everything. So yeah, that was probably the biggest one. It was like brain sensory overload. Um, so yeah.
Dude, I'm so glad you brought it up because I've brought it up so many times. I absolutely love backgrounds. It's
Yeah,
that I say it on
amazing.
so many episodes. It's something so like everybody loves the characters, and don't get me wrong, I love the characters.
Yeah, yeah,
I love every aspect of the animation industry, but there's just something about world building that's just caught my fancy for the last few years since doing this
for
podcast. It's
sure.
just I don't know what it is. I love aerial shots. I love city skylines. I just love when
100%.
the standard plane, like if we're looking at each other right now, I don't know how to use some of you guys' terms, so I'm very dumb when it comes to this. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can piece this one together. But us sitting here staring, and then you are talking to each other, not really staring at each other, and then the camera view would just break and go somewhere. I just love being on a journey. You're following something, you know, you're at a different level or a different altitude, you know. And one thing, and it's funny because my wife, like, we've watched this movie so many times now because the 2-year-old, he loves this one. He goes in and out of rotation. So, you know, he saw Nightmare Before Christmas for the first time.
Wow.
Shit, like last week before last, and that's all that's been playing. It was Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and it was in that in conjunction with Turtles. And then as soon as he saw A Nightmare Before Christmas, that's all he's wanted to watch. Like I said, my wife hates this when I do this, because every time we would watch Turtles, I would pause it at one specific scene. Obviously the hallway or the fight sequence from the old boy fight sequence, or the homage, that's my favorite scene in the entire movie. That mixed with No Diggity, I was like, holy shit, it blew my mind away. However, one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie is when Bebop and Rocksteady are essentially introducing Superfly, and they're coming out of the car, and you were talking about you know, the lights, the way the lights would go, and then it was just that up shot, and then you see all the music symbols coming out of the boombox, and it's just a slight wiggle of Bebop, and then he's got nips, and he's got his nips pierced, and I'm like, dude, this is so great. And it's just something that I don't know why I just connected with it. I'm not into like warthogs and nipple rings, but it's just like the whole like lead up. The whole lead up to it. It was like, it was them setting the table for what was going to happen. It was them entering or building that world, building that suspense, and then Superfly walks out, and then everything to his cadence, like I'm doing it now, I'm bouncing like Superfly was when he was walking out of the car. So it's just like everybody had their own music, if that makes any sense. Like everybody moved different, everybody felt different, everything felt the same yet different in such a beautiful way. And I don't really know how to word that, like, you know, properly. But it was just, like I said, it was the movie was music, and the music was movie, if that makes any kind of sense. Probably sounds douchey, but
no, I totally get it. Coming from a music background, I talk about animation so much, like with music, and I'll make sounds and stuff. My biggest one with the production art, I think, was the like working on it, like seeing you know, you slowly start to see, oh, someone did some lighting, someone did some rendering, let's take a look. I love watching that stuff. And I think it can also make help you make a lot of creative decisions on your animation if you know how it's lit, right? So I was watching one of the car chase sequences, and the car, you know, has like flash, like the headlights or whatever, and it was literally like scribbles, and I was like, that's just genius. Like, it's just something that supposedly no one would pay attention to, like, who cares? But I'm like, the fact that they didn't just like, okay, I'm gonna emit a light and it's done, like they literally are like drawing it. Same for like the smoke, it just looks like a child like with like these crayons, but it like works so well. And you know, I don't know, I loved it. Like I was just like so excited about it. And like, you know, especially with the like mutant character designs, like I remember, you know, when the trailer came out, or like when images came out, I saw some people's reactions to some of the characters. They're like, oh, that's a lot or whatever, right? And I'm like, but isn't that fun as well, like to do something that people react to, right? Like it doesn't have to be what most people would consider beautiful, right? It just has to have like character and to evoke a sense of like feeling. And I don't know, I just thought the character designs were just so perfect for like,
oh, they were
their movements, and then obviously the voice actors that were picked, like I don't know, it was just like so well done in that sense. So I was excited, and it's challenging working on these characters. Like I remember I had some time and we were about to launch a big sequence, and my soup was like, maybe you should make some like cycles of some of these mutants when they're just standing and listening, right? Because that's something that they're going to do in a lot of these times, and it'll help save time for the team. And I was like, okay, how does Bebop stand and listen? Does he like look around more or less? Does he like snort? Does he breathe heavily? Does he breathe slowly? And then I did one with Scumbug, and I just added all these like twitches to her. I don't know if you know, Scumbug is a her, to her, you know, like different things and stuff like that. So, you know, that to me is where you get to hopefully give that feeling to the audience where like everyone moves differently, right? Like everyone feels different, like they're all grounded in the same reality, but they're reacting to things differently and they're moving differently. That's essentially character, right? There was a great example. I remember an acting teacher taught me this with Tangled, where there's like a scene where like Maximus and Flynn Rider are standing, and then there's like a bunch of water that's about to both hit them, like almost like full-on wave. And Flynn goes like this, but Maximus goes like this.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's like, I'm Maximus, right? And it's like, there you go. There's a character building moment, right? Like, how does each character react to the situation differently? So it was like, how does a nipple-pierced warthog react to this versus Scumbug, which I don't know exactly how to describe her. So yeah, and then obviously with the turtles as well, we were always like, I remember Jeff would be like, yeah, Donnie wouldn't react this way to that. That doesn't make sense, right? So we were like, okay, what do you think Donnie should do? And Jeff would get up and he's like, oh, I think he should kind of do like this or like this, you know, like. So yeah, that's the best, you know, when you're working with people who want to find that thing that makes the character unique in every moment. Like, that's the most fun part, you know, of the process, I think.
I can imagine, man. And like I said, it was I had I don't know if you worked with him, Dave Bleish. You know that name?
No, is he the color script guy?
Yeah, he was the guy I had on a few weeks back.
I saw the interview. I didn't know him, no, but his artwork's amazing.
Oh, dude, he blew me away with Across the Spider-Verse. Just that whole Gwen world. Oh man, so beautiful.
Talk about backgrounds, right? Like I feel like I have to watch the movie a couple more times because I was just looking at the colors in the background. Like, it was.
I'm so afraid to watch it again. It broke me for fucking weeks. I was just like, I didn't know how to, like, I told him, I was like, I didn't know how to explain it. I was like, it broke my brain in the best possible way. And it's just like, I'm looking at this and it's just like, dude, you can't explain this to anybody. Like, this is 100%. Like, you could cut off all the sound that's happening with the exception of the music. Like, you could probably leave the music, but even then you could go silent cartoon and you could feel everything from how the backgrounds were meshing and spinning with the characters and how the characters were interacting with the characters. And it was just all this inner conflict. And I'm watching this and I'm like, dude, this is one of those movies that's so fucking intelligent. It is so brilliant. And then you watch this and you're like, I'm too dumb to watch this. I should not be able to appreciate this at the level it is. But I'm like, they made this so intricate and delicate and difficult all in the same vein. I'm just sitting here like, I feel bad. And I told Dave, I was like, I feel bad for whoever has to do to wrap this movie up, this trilogy that they're gonna have to do, because I didn't think you guys would come close to the first one. They blew the first one. The first one's perfect. This one's perfect, you know, squared or affinity, whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't know what they're gonna do for the third one. Like, most people don't know, but it's just like, god damn, I don't envy any one of them for what they're about to go through as far as that movie goes.
Yeah, I can imagine, for sure. You know, it's I felt like we should have a museum with these frames in it. You know, like, that was my feeling with that, especially with some of the sequences. I really thought the bold decision to like have a background change within a shot, like you cut between one character and another and you're like, wait, the background's different. You know, like, it was, I just never seen anything like that before. I was just like, whoa, what? So
you know what it reminded me of? You know what it reminded me of? Did you ever watch The Watchmen or see or read the Watchmen comics?
I have not.
Oh, dude. You gotta, whenever you get the time. This is Alan Moore, one of the greatest comic book writers of all time. The Watchmen. You could watch the movie. A lot of people shit on the movie. Zack Snyder did the movie. They're like, oh my god, it was shot for shot, or you didn't do enough. You go and you read the comic and you watch the movie. There are some things that are a little different, but it's pretty close to source material. You know, and that's me saying that haven't seen it for over a decade now, so I hope I did just either way. I look dumb on all these interviews, so it doesn't really matter. But it is such a phenomenal movie, and there's a character in there called Rorschach, and he has a mask that he pulls over. So imagine a white mask, and then Rorschach, the Rorschach testing they would do with all the ink blots and stuff. So his mask is always moving, and it's putting out these different designs.
Sounds like Spot.
So exactly. So I wonder, I never made that connection, but I wonder if that was Rorschach, or not so much Rorschach, but like a homage or they got inspired by Rorschach. It's possible. But all of these things would just change panel by panel. It wouldn't even be two panels right next to each other. It'd be a completely different mask. And I was thinking, I'm like, dude, that's what the backgrounds reminded me of, because you would jump shot to shot, but even in some of the shots you would see the backgrounds twisting with the colors and stuff. And I'm like, dude, is this supposed to happen? And did I eat too many edibles before I went in to watch this movie? You know what I mean? It was, like I said, it was just so beautiful. But that's given those guys enough credit. They've had more than enough credit for these last 6 months. The Turtles, man, the Turtles. Watching this movie out there, I know you said your partner was heavy film critic. Excuse me. What did she think? Did she give you thumbs up, thumbs down? Thumbs
definitely thumbs up. And I'm thankful for her. You know, we have a very open relationship in the sense that, like, if she doesn't like something, I want her to tell me whether I've worked on it or not. You know, like, I want to know what she thinks. And
that's how you get better.
Yeah, for sure. And it's something I tell my students a lot, and something I've been trying to do a lot lately is, like, when I'm working on something, obviously not NDA stuff, just something personal, I like to show it to people who aren't animators, who aren't in the industry, because I feel like I get a much more authentic, like, honest, like, almost like impulsive reaction. And to them, when something doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. They're not like thinking, oh, well, he's gonna do this later and maybe he'll add that, and, you know, oh, it'll be cool if this and this. They're just like, I don't get it. You know, you should do this. Or like, oh, this character is in a prison, it doesn't look like a prison, I just don't get it, right? Or like, oh, is it awake? Like, I can't tell it's awake, it doesn't make sense to me, right? Like, stuff like that. So I really, really appreciate her for that kind of stuff. And also talking to just different people that know about that thing that you're animating. So for example, when I did that personal shot with, like, the character, like, putting on makeup, I asked my partner to, like, film some reference, and she was like, oh, I was like, oh, you should put the brush down and then answer the phone, you know, whatever. I was like directing her, and she was like, but I would never put the brush down. And I was like, why not? And she's like, you don't put a makeup brush on the table because then you get it dirty. You don't want to put that on your face. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know, right? And that's the same as when you're working on Turtles. Like, go watch someone using nunchucks so you know how to use it, unless you're trying to make them look like they don't know how to use it, which is totally fine, right? So yeah, I found this guy who was, like, literally on YouTube, like, explaining how to use each Ninja Turtle weapon. Like, I was like, perfect, right? I mean, hopefully he's doing it right, like, I don't know. So yeah, so she really, really enjoyed the film, and she kind of like you, like, on the way to the theater, she's like, this guy worked on it, right? Like, this guy was, like, giving out comics, and she's like, yeah, he worked on it. And the guy was like, really? And I was like, yeah, I guess so, right? Like, from my point of view, like, worked on it is like, well, there's another 1,000 people that have worked on it. It's not so special, right?
You should for sure lead with that. This is okay, guys. I worked on it. No big deal. It's okay. I worked on the Turtles. Front of the line privileges. So we've all definitely went down YouTube rabbit holes that we didn't start out with, right? And if there's one thing I love martial art fails. I love fake martial art videos. So how long did it take you when you were looking up this nunchuck guy to go down the fail rabbit holes of seeing people whack themselves with nunchucks or just do fake martial arts?
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. Yeah, there was definitely a little bit of that. And that's part of the fun, right? And it's especially fun if you get to do your own fails, like if you get to try your own stuff. My soup had nunchucks at home, and he was pretty good at using them, so he would show us some stuff. You know, when we were talking about, like, how would he hold it? Would he hold it like this and like that and all that kind of stuff? But no, I don't have too much experience with doing my own fails. But yeah, I've definitely seen a bunch of funny stuff for sure. But like I said, with the catalog, I was like, I kind of know what I'm gonna go look for. Again, the catalog was just more like a list of movies and stuff like that. And yeah, I spent hours and hours and hours, like, just looking at, like, videos and writing it down. And then also I really like the videos where they explain stuff, you know, like, I was trying to find, like, a specific takedown, and I ended up finding this person who just, like, explains takedowns. And it was like, you know, they even use the, like, actual, I don't know which language it is, term for, like, each takedown, and they explain how you do it and how it's different than the other ones and, like, stuff like that. Sometimes it's not useful if they're doing it slowly to explain, so the reference, you gotta, like, find something that's more, you know, whatever. But yeah, so I find it really, really interesting to, like, learn about the thing that you're gonna do, right? Because that's essentially what you walk away from, is what you've learned on the project, right? So that's kind of a really fun part of the process that I enjoy. And yeah.
When you said you were looking at the catalog, was there like one or two movies that you kept going back to that you might have just really been inspired by?
Yeah, for sure. Let me see. What was the big one? I have so many here. I really liked this one's a one that I didn't find like years ago, and I looked from My Lucky Stars,
Write this one down.
with Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung. That one was
I've
really,
never even
really
heard of
good.
this one.
Yeah, it was really good. So that's what I mentioned. Like, I think this one was when he was working with Sammo Hung, so it wasn't like just Jackie Chan. So they have a bunch of fight scenes where they're fighting so many people, and it's just like incredible. There's this other oh, I'll mention that after. But what was the other film that I looked at a lot? Police Story. Yeah, I can't remember if it was one or two because in this clip it had both. But it's the one in the playground scene. That one was insane. And he also uses props, which Splinter, you know, the guards have all these like weapons and stuff. So that was pretty helpful. And then I was about to mention, like, there's this stunt group. I really like looking at stunt people as well. Because again, sometimes they have a lot better like angles and like you can actually see things. It's not just like cutting for ages. So there's this group that I knew from a long time ago called LBP Stunts. And so I looked at them a lot. And then also the people who did the stunt work for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I used a lot of their stuff on Monkey King. I forgot their names, but I think they're brothers. They're really, really good as well. But yeah, Jackie Chan, that was kind of the big ones. Trying to think if there was something else. Yeah, I think that was the main one. Like I said, it was tons of videos, so I even have some that are not Jackie Chan. Like from The Raid, have this other guy. What was the one? Do you remember Jackie Chan fighting like a bunch of like guards with like batons, kind of like next to a train station? I don't remember. It could be like Police Story. I just don't remember.
It might be. Shit, I don't think it was. I keep getting. Was it the one or shit? I know it was a Jet Li movie.
Oh, it's
that's
Super
the
Cop.
one that comes to mind.
Super Cop.
Super
Cop. Police Story 3 Super Cop. That one was one as well.
The one that comes to mind.
Because he dodges a lot there. He dodges a lot of stuff, so that was really, really useful.
When you're doing this fight choreography for Jackie, what are you focused on the most? Do you focus on with the character first? Do you work or have fight choreographers come in and they tell you what they're seeing and that interprets your art? How does that whole scene play out as far as breaking it down?
Wow, I don't think I've ever had to reverse engineer. I remember the biggest question someone asked me at work when they saw me do my first pass blocking was like, are you really violent? Because you know, I like Splinter's like stabbing him in the face in that part, and that was like a big thing, and everyone just thought I was a really violent person. But no one's had to like. I think he also asked me like, how do you work on it? And I just said like, oh, I just do straight ahead, like from start to finish. But I think to me, I spent most of the time choreographing it with the reference and in my head, where I was like, okay, like I'm looking at a video, like obviously I've got the boards, right? But as I mentioned, sometimes the boards are doing stuff that your character might not be able to do, or I think, you know, there's a better way to flow into something. So I asked the directors more like, what's the important thing? And the two things they said was overlapping actions, like they want everything to feel like it's happening at the same time on top of each other, and they want a certain point where the guard hits the other guard, right? So I was like, okay, that's the most important thing to them, let's do that. So for me, I try to find a reference of like, okay, what's happening right now? And right now, Splinter is like blocking something and then doing a hit, right? So I'm like, okay, I need to find reference for that. So I find reference for that, and if I can, and I think I can put it on Splinter's body with a guard, then I go with that, right? And then, okay, he needs to do like this judo roll back, find reference for that, right? So on and so forth. So I think I'm very focused on like the actions and how to flow them together. And then the connecting them is the hardest part, right? Especially because you can't always find reference that's like from the same angle, right? Like, I mean, usually it's not from the same angle. So you're kind of having to interpret things based on like stuff you've learned just from animation, like just from body mechanics, just from like your practicing of moving things around all the time. So like there was the hardest part was probably the, you know, he has to dodge stuff and then have the guards hit each other. So I had the Jackie Chan reference, which was like only chest up, so I have no idea what his feet are doing. And I've got a bunch of people with like batons like hitting him, and he's dodging this way, he's dodging this way. The camera's also behind Jackie, so I mean it's not a great reference, you know, in terms of that. But to me, it's like it's about the choreography, like it's about like what's happening, not how it's happening, right? So to me, it's like, okay, this guard hits first, character dodges. This character hits next, character dodges. How they're gonna dodge or how he hits is gonna change because of my character's designs, right? And then when you're connecting between two different reference videos, then it's like, okay, I'm gonna, you know, he's gonna hit like this, and the other reference, I'm gonna find a moment, hopefully, where it starts like this. But maybe it starts with the other hand, so then I have to, in my mind, like flip it, right? So there's that as well. So yeah, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I could explain very well how I reverse engineer it, because a lot of times while I'm doing it, I'm so focused, like I don't even listen to music, that I'll look at something after and I'll be like, I have no idea how I did that. Like sometimes, I know it sounds like a bit like artistically, like whatever, and I actually view my job much more technically than most people. Like I'm very like, this is my job and I have to fix this and I have to do this, like almost like an electrician or a doctor or a mathematician, you know? But I was taught to always use reference, like that's how I was taught animation. But how do you learn after how to do something that you can't find reference for, right? And I don't know, like I think it's a combination of like a lot of different things that I've learned. But yeah, like sometimes it just like, I don't know if I can explain why my brain is able to connect those things. And I'll be honest, I don't even think my brain is connecting. I think my brain is reacting to what I'm seeing, and I'm like, I'm gonna try it, and if it works, then I'll do it. And I actually, on a tangent, went to a really cool lecture from this animator who's a stop motion animator. And the conversation was all about reference in stop motion animation. So she worked at Leica for many years, where they call them LAVs, which is live action video reference, I think. And at Leica, they had a very strict rule, at least when she was there, of like, you have to shoot reference, and until it's not approved, you're not animating. And then you follow your reference super strictly. And that's what she did, and that was great. But after a while, she felt like, I don't want to do that. I want to do other things where I'm like not filming just from reference. She also just hates filming reference, right? So she showed some stuff she worked on from Anomalisa. Have you seen that movie?
I don't think so.
It's a stop motion film, and the characters are very realistic looking. And she was animating this section between a woman and a man. They're kind of like on a date, and the woman is a bit uncomfortable and a bit awkward, like that's just her personality, and they're talking and whatever. And she didn't film any reference for this, and she said something like the character spoke to her, you know, not in like, you know, like she heard the whispers, but it's just like she suddenly noticed where the characters were, and she empathized with her, and she said, well, what's something that I do very often in this situation? She just noticed like where the characters' hands were, and I mean, she put their hands there, right? It's a stop motion puppet. And she suddenly did this, you know, when you're wearing like a long sleeve t-shirt and you like kind of tuck your hands in your sleeves, and she just kind of did that. And I got like goosebumps from that story, because I was like, that's such a unique like acting choice and so relatable, right? Because we know people who do that, but yet it's so hard to think of those things, right? Like you turn a camera on and you tell someone to like act naturally and have a conversation, they're not gonna do, right? Like it's just like, and even if they do, you might not even notice it, right? So it's very hard to think of those things. But she claims that like when I'm seeing it and I'm animating and I'm touching it, the characters react to what I'm doing and I get these ideas, right? And then you just try them, right? Like so much of it is trying, like beyond like looking at all these references and stuff. Like I think I sent, just for the reference, I had like 8 different versions of the reference with like different types or whatever. And I think I was just very lucky. I sent in my blocking, and Jeff was like, fuck yeah, it's awesome. Like it was like very, very quick. Like he had 2 small notes and that was it. And the shot was like approved. But it doesn't always work that way, right? Like a lot of times you have like a lot of, and there was still like a lot of work to do on it. But yeah, I don't know. This shot was like kind of like what you said. Like I was like, I've never done anything this complicated. I mean, the Super Pets one was similar in the sense of like, you know, a lot of characters fighting one other one, but there was a lot more distance between the characters. There wasn't a lot of like physical interacting between them. That shot had its own challenges for sure. But yeah, with this one, like what am I most focused on? Like I don't know. And then obviously you're thinking about like, I have to fit this all in a certain amount of time. So like, even if you want to do this action, maybe you don't have time. And then the camera, like there's just so much stuff. But I don't know, does that answer your question? What am I focused on?
Yeah, man, it does. Because like I said, I love hearing and seeing what you guys focus on, because obviously you guys, obviously you guys are looking at the movie differently than we are, because you're fucking creating the world, you're creating these characters, you're trying to make sure they all mesh. So when we see it, we see a final project. We don't get to see, you know, the 1,000 drawings you probably had to throw away before you got to that final shot. You know, so I love seeing how you guys work, what inspires you, what you guys. Hold on one second. All right, and we're back. I know where you left off at, but I don't know where I left off on. I do know where I was going to get to. When it comes to your entire sequence here with Splinter, and I want you to pick 2 scenes in particular. But since we've been talking about your scene, is there one part in the entire scene that you worked on that sells it for you, that's like the price of admission for you, that was like your best or your favorite shot of the entire sequence you worked on? Was there one moment in that sequence, if that's a little bit easier or / harder?
So you mean like from that sequence specifically that we're talking about like Splinter fighting the guards, what was my favorite shot?
Yeah, was there like a moment?
Yeah, like not mine, of course. Which one did I really, really like? Yeah,
but you have to pick yours too. You have to pick yours too.
No, I don't want to.
Yeah. You gotta pick a favorite moment, because you brought it up a couple times, so I didn't want to say. I'm assuming it's like that nod to Jackie, where you fought all those people and you see his chest expand and contract. So I didn't want to say that was probably the one, but I know you mentioned it a couple times. But I would love to know, one part of that.
Oh, like one part of that shot, just the shot. Which part is my favorite? That
you worked on, yeah.
Oh wow, like just like as one action, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think it was yeah, that like stabbing to the face, probably, like that was the one that like people really reacted to, and I was like, oh, I guess that like within 2 seconds everyone is like, oh, that character, because that's like the first time you see him fight, so they were like people reacted to it. I even saw someone on YouTube react to it, which was funny, because I was looking to see like what are people's thoughts on this sequence, right, which is hard to find obviously, and someone was like, oh wow, like that was, that was a lot. So, and also like at work people like asked me about that part, so that one, I guess, although to be honest with you, I keep thinking that I should have changed something there. Like I have a single frame in that shot that I can't stop thinking about, that I'm like, oh, I should have done this instead, which is so silly, but I still think about it when I go to sleep. Then actually,
what's the scene? What's the scene?
Oh no, it's not. It's actually the stabbing of the face. Like I think I should have put one of the frames instead of on 2 frames on one.
What do you mean?
So like on a lot of the film, the frame rate is like kind of like with Spider-Verse, where like drawing or a pose is held for 2 frames.
Got you.
I think I should have only held it for 1 frame.
Why?
Because it would have been more impactful.
Yeah?
Would have been snappier. Yeah. Yeah, because there's something with the guard's arm where he's like, he gets hit by it and he like flattens, right? And instead of just like flattening him within 2 frames, I delayed one arm and then it goes down, so it feels too slow.
So it's a little bit more comedic, and you want it to be more like quick and to the point. Yeah, got you.
Yeah, it feels a bit soft.
Splinter wasn't as hardcore as I needed it to be.
It's just like 1 frame. I actually was like, I put it in an editing program, and I took that 1 frame out to see if it felt much different. Because I'm like,
did you notice it in the theater?
Yeah. No, because in the theater I heard it with sound for the first time.
Yeah.
And the sound made it feel really impactful. Sound design, it's like, yeah, so good. Thank you, sound. Whoever did the sound, thank you.
I can sleep a little bit better at night knowing that sound is coming out.
Yeah, it's hard to say of like another specific moment, because like it's just like a bunch of shots together. But one of my buddies on the team did this shot from the sequence where the four turtles are talking to Splinter, and it's just the part where they're like leaving. So they're like, you know, obviously they've like convinced him that they can't stay for the pizza party, and there's this like awkward, like Splinter just wants them to stay, and they obviously don't want to offend him, and it's like interesting because each character has a different feeling towards Splinter, right? Like obviously Leo is like, he's the leader, he like looks up to Splinter the most, and he's kind of like the tattletale, right? And Raph is like with his anger, like everyone has their different things. And so my buddy, like, he actually filmed reference of himself, like for each character of how they would run off screen, right? Like Raph would be like really, really running and then looking back and like saying, yeah, cool, man, see you later. And like Leo would obviously feel the worst, so he's like kind of lagging behind, and Mikey's just kind of like super awkward, like just all this stuff. Yeah. And even just seeing the reference, I just like laughed out loud. And his shot, I think, just like turned out so good. It's also a hard shot to animate, like characters moving in a scene with a camera move while also acting and talking. And especially when it's not just like a walk that's uniform, like they have to like turn around and there's step, kind of like what you said, like the environment is such a big part of this film. So that was probably like one of my favorite moments that he did. You know, that whole shot, I guess. I don't know if it's like a specific moment. He did this one thing with Raph where Raph goes like this. I just thought it was like just so specific to how I would imagine Raph would do it. Like if I met him in person, it sounds like he would do that. So there was probably that. I think, yeah, that's the two, I guess, that's I really remember. I remember people's reactions to it, you know? So yeah. Like to me, when people ask me like what's a good shot, I'm like, it's an approved shot, right? Because it's not about me. It's not about whether I like the shot. It's about whether the directors. So when I'm on Zoom or whatever meeting we're using to show my shot to the directors, I'm not looking at my shot. I'm looking at the directors' faces. And that's how you get an honest reaction from someone about your work, right? If they're laughing, if they're like disgusted, if they're like crying. I mean, I've never made someone feel that much, but you know, or if they just look really confused and unhappy. Yeah, that's my one thing that I'm waiting to do for sure.
I'm pretty sure it's coming. And since we're talking about that sequence, I love when Splinter is trying to give them a piece of the world up above, the world that they want to blend into. And then the fact that you guys cut in replica cutouts of who I know it was Chris Pine.
All the Chris's.
Chris Evans. Yeah.
Oh my God, that was hilarious. I remember
Pine.
At work, so like again, like when you're in Maya, right, like the program we use, sometimes we don't have textures, so we just have these like blobs. And we were like trying to figure out, wait, which Chris and where's the Chris supposed to be? And it was so complicated to communicate because I was like, this is cutout A, this is cutout B, cutout C. And then we're like, okay, Chris H is cutout A and he needs to be here. Like it was like just so, yeah. But the people who animated that was an artist from Montreal. I forgot his name now, damn it. But the one where he's like, come sit down, like it's Chris. Yeah, like,
it's
Chris
Pine.
Look at my eyebrows.
I'm the best Chris Pine. Look at my eyebrows.
I have to say, if we're talking like favorite in the whole film, my favorite is the sequence with the baby turtles.
Turtle tots, huh?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and then did you see the character designs, like the little like pencil drawings that they did of that?
I did. My son, and I'm actually pretty jealous. My youngest son, Cooper, he's 2 years old. I can't remember what store we were at, but we saw they have the Turtle Tots T-shirt, and it's just them running and jumping and bouncing, and I think it just says Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or whatever it is behind it. Yeah. But he saw it and he was like, and I bought him 2 turtles today too. Like I love how like Turtles is starting to come back in vogue, because you kind of had like 2012, it blows up, everybody gets back into the Turtles. Once it starts to kind of wind down and Michael Bay starts to come in, like a lot of people shit on those movies, but I can find some enjoyment with those movies. Yeah. Like I've gotten a little bit wiser as I've gotten older. It's like I'll always have what I love and what I grew up on. My favorite of the Ninja Turtles, you guys are this close to taking this movie as my number one Ninja Turtle movie, or my number one Ninja Turtle anything of all time. If it wouldn't have been for the 90s live action, the first Ninja Turtle live action movie, that in my opinion, I don't give a fuck what anybody says, that is my favorite movie of all time. That is a perfect movie. From the cinematography that was used, I don't know when the last time you watched this movie. Go back and watch that.
Probably
first
as a kid,
one.
I gotta watch it. Is it 1990?
1990, dude. It just hit its 33-year anniversary for that movie. this is where I'm pretty sure this is where my love of backgrounds, at least subconsciously, started. At the opening of that, when they're doing that whole monologue about the Foot Clan and all this shit going on, and April O'Neil's narrating it, and they have that upshot view of the city of New York, and it's beautiful black. It's like black, pink, and purple and blue. It's like that dusk time. My favorite shots are in movies or in animation is that colors, the purples, the reds, the pinks, the blues, and all that shit right before it gets dark and the sun sets. It's that downshot view, and it's like all of these kids are starting to steal, you know, all of this shit. Or there's a shot in the movie that's like that, but it's the whole narration, it's the whole scene, world building. I absolutely love that shot. But like I said, the movie is gritty, the movie is dark, especially for the 90s. Even though it's kind of look back on some scenes is very campy, you know, you encapsulate the turtles in that movie. And like I said, just how they went through it, and then talking to so many people that worked on it and hearing the shit that the guys and gals had to go through to do that movie, I'm just like, holy. And that this podcast wouldn't exist if it wouldn't be for that movie, you know what I mean? So it's a beautiful movie. It's definitely worth going back and rewatching. I burnt that VHS out 2 to 3 times on VHS. I burned it out 2 to 3 times, and that was the only movie my mom would buy again, you know, at that time, that I was hooked on. It was that one and Dumb and Dumber, and she would not buy Dumb and Dumber again. It was only the Ninja Turtle movie. So yeah, it's worth a rewatch, man. And the scene in there in particular you were just talking about was with a younger Splinter and the Turtle Tots. It's so fun. And one thing that I asked Andrew Justra about, and he was the guy that was, I think he was the script coordinator. I had him on. Yeah, I had him on, and I was like, the haircut you guys gave young Splinter was very, very interesting. And he was like, why was it interesting? And I said, because if you go back and you look at some of Kevin Eastman, the co-creator of the Ninja Turtles, if you go back and look at some of his younger photos of himself, he's got that hairstyle that Splinter has. He's got that Jerry Curl-esque mullet.
So did he confirm if it was on purpose? Or?
Well, I asked him that, and it's been a little bit since I've released it, because I was waiting to get a bunch of you guys to have on so I could release like 6 to 8 weeks of Turtles. And I think I'm at like 4 or 5 guys now that I've had for the Turtles. So I'm going to release those probably starting
I have to watch them all
in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I definitely get really nerdy about the movies and Turtles in general. But I asked him that, and I can't remember what he said. I know he said it wasn't I don't think he said it was like a super conscious thing. He's like, it might have happened subconsciously, and I'm paraphrasing now, and I've gotten this wrong and I'm just making up this shit, I apologize, Andrew. It's been a long time since I thought about it, but I don't remember him going like, yeah, it was a conscious effort to make it look like it was just one of those one of those crazy
accidents, maybe.
Happy accidents, man. But yeah, I just thought that was really cool. And then just like getting to see Eastman High and then layer it up on the top of the buildings and shit like that, paying homage to the two creators. I just thought that was really cool, and you know, like a really, really, really nice little nod to those two guys that helped create my childhood and so many others' childhoods.
For sure.
So we talked about your scenes and then some of your favorite scenes. As we start to wind down, man, when you think about this time that you spent on Turtles, man, is there one word, one phrase that comes to mind as far as your experience on Turtles?
Oh, I don't know how to describe it in a word. Maybe you can help me find the word. Like, my first one is like creativity, but that's so boring. It's just like that feeling that the people who are making the final call are just like, yeah, go for it. You know, like if you think it'll be good and we think it'll fit the story, then go for it. You know what I mean? Like, trust. I like that. Yeah, trust is a good one. I guess so. Which is surprising. Like, I didn't work on it for that long. Like, as you mentioned, like some people worked on it for years, right? Like animation, at least from my experience, sometimes is like shorter because you're not on from beginning to end. You're kind of like in the middle. But also I got brought onto the film later and all that stuff. So like to be able to get to the point where you can talk to the directors that way is amazing. Like I remember one of my, not my first review, but like it was like an earlier review, and Kyler was there. And we were talking about a scene that I was like leading on. Like I wasn't animating it. It was my buddy Chase did a great job. And we were showing the shot with like Splinter with like all the nunchucks and whatever. And at the end of the scene, Splinter like kind of just like hits him behind, you know, like hits him in the in the crotch, and then just kind of like, you know, just like looks forward and whatever. And then Kyler was like, "Oh, should he like look back?" And I like instinctually, like without realizing, just yelled, "No, he should totally not look back. It's way more badass for him to not look at the person he hit because he's so." And I was like, after I said it, I was like, well, that's not how you usually talk to a director, right? And Kyler was like, yeah, you're right. Thank you so much for like being so like specific and like and honest and like confident about it. That really helped me make that decision, right? And I remember talking about it with my soups after, and they were like, no, I think you said it like respectfully, right? Like I wasn't like yelling and like whatever, but I think they made us feel like we could talk that way with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we could like goof around and like laugh. Like Jeff has an infectious laugh. Like when he laughs, it's just like you can't not laugh with him, you know? Yeah. And when you get people who are like, they're not wearing that like mask of the like, I'm the director. They're just kind of like, I'm just like you, I want to make this the best that I can. Yeah. And you know, they'll still tell you if something's not working. Like they're super professional, of course, but it's I don't always imagine that I'll be able to develop that relationship with the director. And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But you know, it's just different experience. So that word, you know, I like trust, I guess. It sounds pretty accurate. Yeah.
So there's 3 references I'm going to give you. So the next time you have that question is asked, like, should we make him look back? You say no. 4 references, because we're going to throw in Splinter. You can say, look at any Steph Curry game-winning shot from the 3-point range. He's turning around instantly because he knows it's going in. Look at Rafiki from Lion King, where he hits the hyena and doesn't look back with that fist and keeps walking. And I know I said I had 4, but the weed is for sure kicking in, and I forgot the 4th one. So we're just going to go with those 3. We're not going to fix this shit in post because the wheels are falling off, ladies and gentlemen. So those are the 3 references that I would give anybody. Splinter, Steph Curry, and Rafiki.
It's because he's so good at his job, he doesn't even need to look. Kind of like how
he doesn't need validation.
You cut onions, you don't even look at the onion. Whereas if I'm cutting an onion and I don't look, I'm cutting my finger off. And I'm actually okay at cooking, right? But anytime I've cut myself, it's because I wasn't looking.
How much pizza, speaking of cooking, how much pizza did you guys eat on set or when you guys were working? I got to imagine it was
I work from home, so there was no on set, unfortunately, but I'm a big fan of pizza.
What's your go-to pizza?
What's your go-to pizza?
Yeah, what's your go-to toppings?
I'm just like a bunch of vegetables and pepperoni usually. That's kind of my...
So, like I said, as we start to wind down, those 2 questions that I pre-gamed you with, man, you got 2 books that you would recommend any fan of animation or anybody in animation should have on their shelves. What 2 books inspire you?
So for animation specifically, a big one was What Every Body is Saying, which is a book written by Joe Navarro, who was a longtime FBI profiler, investigator, not sure the exact term. And my first ever like animation teacher and animation mentor, Mike Amos, shout out to Mike Amos, recommended it. And it just talks about like psychology, like body language psychology, but in a very practical way, like where he actually describes events at work that have happened to him, where he's like, you know, that kind of stuff. So I found it really eye-opening for like when you are posing out your character to make decisions based on, you know, the situation and the character in the sense of how would their body act in this. And in the book, one of my favorite things was that he mentioned that he felt like the most truthful part of the human body was people's feet.
Really?
Because obviously our face, like we're trained our whole life to like lie, right? And when you think about it, the feet are usually the thing that are most concealed when you're thinking about it, right? So he talks about this story like at a poker table and whatever. But the classic thing is like feet pointing direction. Like, is someone engaged and interested in your conversation, or is someone pointing away, kind of like, I don't really want to talk to you, that kind of thing. So the book was really cool. And then the other one is Forced Life Drawing. I mean, all of the Forced books by Mike Matesi. For like, he specifically talks about like anatomy, life drawing, but his posing is so geared towards animators because he talks about force. And one of the big things you'll hear animators is say, animate forces, not forms. So you're thinking about the energy and how it's creating shapes within the body, as opposed to, oh, it's a forearm, it's a shoulder, it's a finger. You're thinking about the force within the body, which is really cool. Yeah, so I'd say those 2 books.
Right on, man. And that the first one you said, was that the same guy that they did that Mindhunter show on? The guy that started the FBI profiling program?
Oh, are you talking about Tim Roth? Lie to Me?
Oh no, I love Lie to Me. No, there's a show. I watched that one so much before I deployed.
I think I've heard
Mindhunter's
of it,
on Netflix. Yeah.
Oh, I've never seen it.
Yeah, I saw the first couple seasons. It was like the guy that would go and I think he started out as like a hostage negotiator, and he was trying to get this guy to come off, and then he would go to prisons and interview the serial killers, trying to figure out like if there is a commonality between all of them, like trying to figure out their things so they can spot a serial killer. So I didn't know if it was that. I didn't know if it was that same guy that you were talking about that came up with all of those bodies. That's pretty cool, man. I love shit like that. Just that lie to me thing where I was like, dude, I wonder if I can spot micro expressions like this guy. And I was like,
I love micro expressions.
I was like, I don't know if this guy's lying to me or not. He seems shady.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. So that was a really cool show. All right, man. And one of my favorite questions, because we get to hear about some people. I used to do a Mount Rushmore, but I feel like a Mount Rushmore, it'll change.
Oh, okay.
And your 5 that you're going to give me are probably going to change anyways. But I like this one because I get to bring in an interesting stimulant. And I forgot to give you the third part to that last question. You have to pick the first topic of what you want to talk about with all these people at your dinner party.
Oh my God. Are they all at the dinner party together? And I have to pick a topic that interests all of them?
They all showed up, and if you want bonus or extra credit points...
I think I know what it is. I think I know what it is, but okay.
Okay. If you want extra credit points, are you ready? But if you want extra credit points, which one is going to be fashionably late? So you get 5 people to your dinner party. You get 5 people to your dinner party, man, of people that inspired you. Who are you bringing to your dinner party, and what are you cooking?
Okay. Robin Williams.
Oh, man. Greatest
Ken
actor of all time.
Robinson. Eric Goldberg.
Nice.
And then, because we talked about it so much, Keanu Reeves and Jackie Chan.
Oh, dude, what are you making? Or what are you buying for food? Or what are you making for food?
Tofu curry.
Ooh, I like tofu curry. Hot, mild?
Mild.
Yeah. Right on.
I don't know how spicy they like it. Let them choose.
Oh, man. You'll be able to tell by the way their feet are pointing how much they like it or they don't like it.
Like their curry.
And what kind of conversation are you going to have with all of these folks that you've invited to your table?
Education.
Oh, what a beautiful topic, and something that is so underutilized.
Cheesy, but
not at all,
man. I mean, Ken Robinson
and
Robin Williams, for sure, they'll be great for education, right? Especially Ken Robinson. But I hope that Eric, Keanu, and Jackie would chime in for sure. I mean, in Jackie's biography, he talks about his kids. And Keanu's like the nicest person in the world. And Eric Goldberg has worked in the animation industry for so long. Like he must have a plethora of like things to talk about with just like education in general, right? But I feel like they could get in on that.
Like I said, this has been I've been looking forward to this one. It took a little while to make it happen, and I'm glad we finally got to sit down and talk, man, because this is a blast. I always love talking Turtles. I always love talking to you guys. For the fans that might not know it, man, if you're on social media, where can they come and find you and say, hey, man, I love the Splinter sequence?
Oh, yeah. Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can just like Google my name, or on Twitter, I think it's Neave Art or something. But yeah, more than happy, like if anyone wants to reach out and chat about anything, if you have any questions. I also am happy to give like feedback for people on their work. Like I do that a lot. I have a lot of different students and people that I'm mentoring at different times and stuff. So if I can help with anything, please reach out.
Beautiful, man. Well, like I said, this has been a real blast. I love getting to talk to you guys and hear you guys' story. I can't wait to have you back on, and I really hope you get to work on Ninja Turtles 2, because I know all of us can't wait for that one to happen. Well, he's been Neave. I've been Julian. It's been the What's My Head podcast, and this is another piece of your childhood. Good night.
Good night.